Hi guys, welcome back to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. So today we're going to be making some tomato spinach pasta. Yes, I know I love my pasta and I love my tomatoes. We're combining all those things together. So to start off with, we've got some garlic. Now I love my garlic. We've got some breadcrumbs, some salt, some black pepper, some tomatoes. I'm using two types of tomatoes here. This is just the ones that you get from the store-bought can. So I'm using those because I like them because they come with a lot of moisture in them and juices. And of course, they're easy. They're already pre-chopped for you. So I'm using some pre-chopped tomato juice that is from a can, tomatoes from a can basically. And then I've got my fresh ones that I've already chopped, as well as some bell peppers here, capsicums, which I'm just using the red and the yellow because I have my green color here with the spinach. Then I'm using two types of cheeses. I've got some Parmesan and some cheddar cheese as well. And of course the pasta. So today's pasta we're using one that's called tagliatelle, but you can use whatever pasta you have, like a penne pasta or the spaghetti, the long strand one. You use whatever you have. Some olive oil, as well as my herbs. My herbs for today are some parsley as well as some basil leaves. And then of course, like I mentioned, to have spinach. So that's what we're making today, some tomato spinach pasta. And to start off with, I want to start off with blanching my spinach. Now usually blanching is just pre-cooking your spinach. That's all it is. So we're going to let our water come to a boil. Then I'm going to season the water with just a little bit of salt. Not too much, just a little bit, just give it a bit of flavor. And the blanching helps retain the color. And then also I'd like to mention that for the breadcrumbs that I'm using here, I've gone the extra step and actually just added a few ingredients in my breadcrumbs. So when you have your regular breadcrumbs, I used my own. I made with my own bread. Obviously I didn't make the bread, I bought the bread. Yeah, so you get some bread and then add some bacon into it. The normal way you'll make your bacon until it's a bit crisp. And then add some parsley in there, or if you wanted some thyme leaves or oregano. But I used parsley for this, and then I used some bacon like I've mentioned, and then of course the bread, which I just put in a blender and then blended it, or a mini chopper, and what you get is some nice little fine crumbs. So this is just a way for you to make your own breadcrumbs at home that are a bit special from the regular breadcrumbs, and it will give a nice different taste to it, to whatever you add them to. So my water has come to a boil, so just going to go ahead and add our spinach. So my spinach, this is a bunch of spinach, which to you guys could be more than one bunch depending on the size. So these were about 10 leaves, rather 10 stalks, 10 very large stalks, yeah, very large. So if you're getting your spinach on the smaller size, then you could definitely use more than one bunch. So I'm just going to reduce the heat here because now it's come to a boiling point, and then just press down my spinach. So for the other pot that you can see here, we're going to add some olive oil and some salt because we're making our pasta. So I'm going to just add the heat there and then let that come to a boiling point, then add our pasta. And the pasta I've mentioned, we're using tagliatelle pasta. So I'm just going to add some salt there, some seasoning, just some salt and some olive oil. Now the olive oil just helps your pasta not stick together. And of course the salt is for seasoning. I always say it's easy to season as you go. So I like seasoning whatever I'm making with every stage of my food. And I like to be very wary of how much seasoning I'm putting into everything, because it all makes a difference in the end. So I have a substantial amount of water here. So I've just added a bit more salt. So it's about a teaspoon. And I'm going to check on my spinach. So I'm going to add my pasta there, and then we're going to go on a short break so that when you guys come, I'll have drained the spinach and the pasta will be cooking. So just add your pasta when your water comes to a boiling point. Mine is just about, you can see the bubbles. Then add your heat. Now, like I've mentioned, you can use whatever pasta you want. I'm using tagliatelle pasta, but you can use spaghetti if you want, penne pasta if you want. Whatever pasta you have available, just use it. So my spinach, like I've mentioned, I'm just going to leave this on for about a minute or so. And all we're doing here is we want to blanch it. And then once it's blanched, the blanching is just to retain the color like I've mentioned. So once it's blanched, I'm going to drain it, and then I'm going to squeeze out a bit of the water and then chop it up. Then we're going to start on everything else, the frying on everything else. So we're going to go on a short little break so that I can take care of the spinach. When you guys come back, we'll continue from there. So see you in a little bit. Hi guys, welcome back again to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. So today we're going to be making, if you just tuned in, some tomato chicken pasta. And if you just tuned in, we went on a short break, but before that, we actually put some olive oil and some salt into the water here for the pasta. Then I added my pasta. I mentioned I'm using tagliatelle pasta, but you can use whatever pasta you'd like at home. And then I also had some water that had my spinach inside. I was blanching my spinach, and all I did was in the hot water add my spinach, and then now I've just drained it, so I'm just going to squeeze out some of the water. I ran some cool water into it so to stop the cooking process. And if you've got some ice cubes, you could definitely add some ice cubes in there. So all I'm doing here is just squeezing out the water, not too much because then your spinach will become dry. You don't want it too dry. So I'm just squeezing it out so that I can chop it afterwards. And you can actually see the water as I'm draining it. So that's all blanching is for you, and this is actually a very good technique, especially if you have a lot of spinach at home and you're trying to save it so you can use it at a later date. You'll now put this like in a Ziploc bag and then use it when you're ready. Just put it in the freezer and then you can use it for whatever meal you'd like to. So I'm just going to chop this, and you could definitely still chop it and put it in your Ziploc bag. So I always find it's easier to chop. And you see how much it shrinks from the big large bunch I had of spinach. So that's all we've done. I'm just giving this a rough chop, and then we're going to go ahead and start with our other ingredients. So I'm going to place this aside. So that's how you retain the green color of your spinach. So it's very simple. Nothing too complicated. You can do this at home. All I use is just some water, some salt, and of course your heat. So I'm just going to turn this on the other side, and the reason I have this is just to give my board stability so it doesn't move around as much. And then I'm just going to rinse off my knife slightly so that I can move on to the next item. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to add some garlic to our pan. Now I've been heating my pan. I just put on the heat. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my garlic here. Now, depending if you like a lot of garlic or a little garlic, then it's kind of like a preference. So I'm just going to bash this like you've seen and then take out the skin. So just take out the skin. The bashing helps it, makes it a lot easier for you to take out the skin. And then place those aside. Put back your pan. And then heat. Now I'm using some olive oil just because I have it handy and I like the taste of olive oil, but you could definitely use whatever oil you'd like at home. Then we're just going to give this a rough chop. Now if you don't like garlic, you could definitely omit it from your cooking process, but I like garlic. I like the smell of it. I don't mind it much. So whatever we're making today, it's not too complicated. It's something you can follow at home because I want you to cook with me. I want you to feel inspired to try out the meals, right? That's the whole point, so I hope you do. So listen for the sizzle, always listen for the sizzle. And then we're just going to stir that in a minute or so. In the meantime, I'm going to cut my peppers. I'm giving this also a rough chop. Nothing too complicated. And then we're going to stir our garlic because we don't want it to burn. So again, remember to keep an eye, and I've lowered my heat So I'm watching the garlic as I do this, and whatever pieces that might be too big, just give them a chop. So that's it for our capsicums. We're going to add this. Okay. And the sizzle again, always look out for the sizzle. So give this a stir. And the nice beautiful colors, you can already see them. Nice and vibrant. And then remember we had put our pasta in here. So I want to just have a look at it because I don't want it to overcook while I'm here. Always, like I mentioned, always keep an eye on everything else you're doing. So let's see how our pasta is doing. And a good test is if it breaks easy, then it's ready, but it has a bit of a bite to it. I can feel it's a bit hard. Yeah, so I'll give that a little bit longer. And then just continue with this. So we're sauteing our capsicums and our garlic. The aromas. I told you I love garlic. It's got this thing about it, just brings these beautiful aromas into whatever room it's in. So we're going to add our tomatoes. I mentioned I'm using 2 types of tomatoes here. Just the regular tomatoes you'll get from the market, as well as the tinned tomatoes. And I mentioned I'm using the tinned tomatoes because they come with a lot of juice and I need that juice for whatever I'm making, which is the tomato spinach pasta. So I want that juice. And already you can see the colors, they look vibrant. So I'm going to give that about a minute or so and season it with a bit of salt. The salt just helps release, breaks down the juices from the pasta and the capsicums. Then we're going to add the pepper just a little bit later once we check on the seasoning. So just give this a stir, and you want to make sure you use very nice ripe tomatoes. So you know those tomatoes you have in the house that look like they're going bad, or you don't know what to do with them, which wouldn't be good for a salad. Those are the tomatoes you want to use for a tomato sauce, like what I'm doing here. So like for the tomato pasta dish, you definitely want to use very nice, juicy, vibrant tomatoes because they're going to give you the most. Okay, so we're going to pour in now our tinned tomatoes that I mentioned come already pre-chopped for you. Yum. And already you can see the dish is coming together, and it's very simple, nothing too complicated. Then just add your heat here. Oh, my heat has gone off. So I'm just going to move it there because my pasta is already done as it is anyway. To just make my life a little bit easier. Okay, there we are. I'm going to check on my pasta as that continues. So again, like I mentioned, I don't want to overcook my pasta because I am going to add it in there. It's going to keep cooking. So I just let it cook a bit further because I mentioned it still wasn't to the consistency I wanted it. I wanted it to have a bite, but I don't want it raw. And right now I can feel it's there because I can already cut it with my hand. So it's exactly where I want it to be. So I'm going to leave it there for just about a minute as I stir this in. And then we're going to add our spinach and the pasta. Remember, our pasta here is already cooked and the spinach is cooked. So once you add them in, it's just the final tossing. So I'm adding the pepper, a bit of pepper. I love pepper. So a good amount of pepper, definitely. Then we're going to add our spinach. Yes, the green color is coming on board. And then now we're going to add our pasta. And the good thing with this, the pasta, you don't even have to drain it. You can just definitely get it from there and then just pour it in, which is what I'm going to show you. Already you can see the colors, nice and vibrant. Okay, so I'm just going to get a spoon. Yeah, you can use this. So I'm just going to use the help. So add your pasta. Don't worry if you make a mess, it's fine. I'm just using whatever it is I have available. Of course, if you have tongs, this will be a lot easier with tongs. But this just shows you that if you don't have the right tools for the job, it doesn't mean you can't do the job. Just work with what you have. like I'm doing. And ignore my mess. Messes are bound to happen in the kitchen. So I'm just going to scoop that in there. So once you've drained out the pasta from the water, we're just going to mix this in. Oh, look at the color. And already you can see the color coming about. And this is what you're looking for, the nice, beautiful colors to blend in together. So just stir this in gently, not to create too much of a mess like I'm doing. But that's the beauty of cooking sometimes, you know, you just have to live through the mess. Okay, so we're just stirring this up. And that's it. That's how simple it is to make our pasta dish. So we'll be going on a short break. When you guys come back, we will definitely be serving this because that's all it takes to make it. There's nothing else that's left to do. So we're going to add a bit of cheese now. And the cheese, you could definitely add this later. I'm going to add it both. I'm going to add some cheese right now and then stir it. And I'm going to also add some cheese at the finishing stage. So I'm just going to let this melt. And then something I like to do is add a bit of the pasta water in there, just so that it can give it a bit more of moisture. Don't worry, it's not going to make it too wet. Just gives it a nice moisture without it being too dry. And then mix it in so that your cheese can actually melt. Oh, yum. Okay, so that's looking good. And then we're going to add just a bit more of seasoning because remember I added the salt right at the beginning, so I just want to add a bit more salt at this stage. And because I love my black pepper, a bit more black pepper. And that's it. So we're going to let this bubble away for about a minute or so, just so the juices can actually come together. And actually they already are. What happens with pasta most times is that the juices will start to stick into the pasta, so you want to make sure your sauce has a bit of moisture. You see, like mine, so this moisture is going to start sticking to the pasta, and that's what you want. So if you don't have enough moisture, you definitely want to add a bit more, because then your pasta is going to end up being dry. And then that's it, actually, because I have some herbs here, I'm going to actually add a bit of basil, just because I like basil and the taste of it. So this is actually a very good dish to add your basil to. You could add other herbs that you have at home, for example parsley, like I have some parsley, so I could combine the two. So that's all I'm adding, some basil, and then just sprinkle that around. And we're going to give that a stir, and that's it for it now. So we're going to go on a short little break, and when we come back, my pasta will be ready to serve. Again, remember, I have reduced the heat, so it's not on high heat. You want it to have a bit of moisture. I've added some basil, some basil, I was going to say parsley, but I added some basil. Yes, we could add parsley definitely, or whatever herbs you'd prefer. So I'll see you after the break. Hi guys, welcome back again to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. Now if you just tuned in, we're actually making a tomato spinach pasta, and we were actually done with the cooking when you came in. We added a bit of some basil leaves and some cheese to melt off. I mentioned I'm using cheddar and Parmesan cheese. Then I also have here some tomato paste, which I've just diluted with a bit of water, which I'm just going to finish off to my pasta, just to make sure that my sauce holds together. And like I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you have enough liquid in your sauce so that your pasta soaks it all up and it's not dry. You see like how my pasta looks? It's nice and moisturized. Yes, that's the word I'm choosing to use, moisturized. Yeah, you can see that, and the beautiful colors, of course. So I'm just going to add a bit of the tomato paste that I've mentioned here. It's tomato paste that I've just diluted a bit with water. So just a little bit, just to make sure everything holds together, but you don't have to use it. And then just stir this, gently stir it. And then we're going to go ahead and serve this. Remember, I added some of the cheese in here, and the rest I'm going to top it off. So I'm just stirring this gently, trying to make sure not to break my pasta because I don't want it to be mush, of course, which is why I told you it's important to make sure you don't overcook your pasta in the first stage of boiling it, because it's still going to continue cooking in this stage. So once that's ready, once you make sure everything combines well and there's not much moisture in your pan, as you can see, everything is hanging like a thread to your pasta. That's exactly what you want. So now it's time to serve our food. So we're just going to go ahead and serve this in our beautiful plate. So make sure you put a good substantial amount, because you want to make sure that there's a good helping of the pasta. And then we're going to, of course, top it off with all our vegetables, because like I mentioned, it is after all a tomato and spinach pasta. So just try and make sure you grab some of your spinach, your tomatoes, if they don't at once fall onto your plate. You kind of need to give them a lending hand. That's what I'll call it, a lending hand, yes. And then you can get some of those capsicums, try and create a bit more of color as you're plating it, because like I mentioned, we had a bit of the yellow capsicums and of course a bit of the red as well, but of course there's already the red from your tomatoes. So just try and make sure you can add as much color as possible. Then we're going to finish this off with more of my fresh herbs, because I did get some fresh herbs for a reason, and that's because I like my fresh herbs, which you do not have to use if you don't have some, but it's just a good touch and it makes your food look different, of course. So that's what I'm just trying to go for here, to just make sure that my food is looking nice and vibrant. So I'm going to finish this off by chopping a bit of very little parsley, because of course there's already enough green in my plate, as you can see. So inside the food I actually added basil, but I just want to finish it off with a bit of parsley because I love parsley. And you could add, I mentioned earlier, basil leaves or parsley or coriander if you wanted. It's not too so Italian, coriander, but hey, if you like cilantro, by all means use it. And of course I mentioned earlier that I had my own blend of breadcrumbs, which I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do is just get this and sprinkle this around, and then we're going to get some of our parsley, sprinkle that around as well. So I'm just making sure I have like a good amount of my breadcrumbs, and what this is going to do is just add a crunch to your pasta, so that when you taste it, it's got a good nice bite to it. And we always want something to have a little texture to it, a little of a bite, a little bit of a crunch, and that's what the breadcrumbs do here. So just a little goes a long way, of course. And then we're going to finish off with some Parmesan cheese. Now earlier I mentioned I had Parmesan and cheddar cheese. The cheddar cheese and the Parmesan, I already used it in my mixture, but finish off, I just want to finish it off with some cheddar. You could definitely use both, but I'm just choosing to do it with the cheddar. And then we're going to finish this off by adding some basil leaves, because I want you to know that it actually has some basil leaves in there. And how else are you going to know if I don't add a little leaf? So just going to add this in the center, just so you're aware that it actually had some basil leaves. And that's it. So our dish was very simple to make, like you saw. It didn't take us too long. It's something you could easily do at home. This is our spinach tomato pasta, and you could definitely do this like I mentioned, with whatever vegetables you have in the house, whatever herbs you'd like to use. If you don't want to use the parsley and spinach like I've used, then you don't have to. So just make it work for you and use whatever it is that you have at home. So that's what we're making. That was our dish for today. So something very simple, very easy to make, that you can make at home with your family. You could also make this for a date, of course, if you wanted to. It doesn't take much time. You could do it together in the kitchen, get your kids, cook with them, your tomato spinach pasta. In no time, it's going to be ready. It's kind of like magic. You don't even spend so much time in the kitchen. At least I don't think I spend so much time in the kitchen. So yes, that's a simple dish for you guys today. And if you want to follow us, you can definitely do that. We are on Brand Plus TV on Facebook, so make sure to go ahead and follow us, and we can get interacting on social media. I am your host and chef, Sheena Amario, and this has been Dinner Guide, and today we made some tomato spinach pasta. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!